Hello and welcome to the PMC podcast, where PMC stands for Project Management Conversations. Our guest today is Andy Jordan, who is a seasoned business, project, and thought leader. He has driven transformative change across diverse industry, from software development to public sector initiatives and whatnot. So last time around, we discussed project failures with him, and that episode will be linked in the description if you're interested in that. But today we are talking about an article from Andy which goes by the headline, "You manage what you measure." So we are of course talking about importance of measuring progress and value, and all of it will of course be in the purview of project management itself. So before we get started, thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me back. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation last time. I'm looking forward to this one.
Awesome, awesome. So I'd like to start things off with this idea that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, which is something that you mentioned. Can you share like how defining success criteria upfront in the project, it changes the game for project teams?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So Lewis Carroll in Alice in Wonderland said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And when you think about projects, as project managers, we spend a lot of time worrying about what the schedule is and what the deadline is and how we're going to achieve that and how many resources we've got and all the rest and which features are going to be included. But I've spoken to a lot of executives over the years, and it's been a lot of years, and not one of them has ever said to me, I want to spend $10 million or $100 million or whatever it is on a project because I desperately want to complete some work on time, on scope, and on budget. It just never happens. That's not why projects are approved. Projects are approved to deliver benefits. That might be obvious. It might be revenue or profitability or market share. It might be risk reduction. It might be operational efficiency, whatever it is. The project is being done. Every single project we do is being done for a business reason. If you don't define what that reason is up front, then the project manager and team have no idea whether they're going about the work in the right way or even doing the right things. It's all very well to say in a traditional world that, well, we got signed off requirements doc and functional specs in place, so we're good. Or in Agile, to go, well, everyone's saying, yep, they like it. But at the end of the day, if what you're doing is not contributing to the reason you're doing it, you're never going to succeed. And it happens way too often. And that was really what I was trying to get at with the article.
Yeah, I love that. And that is something that actually we've been seeing for quite a few years now, with how project managers are expected to deliver value much more than, as you mentioned, being on time and, making sure the cost is under control and whatnot. But all of that is important, but delivering value has definitely taken the center stage. Now, you mentioned PMI's research that shows a striking difference in the NPSS score that you mentioned, right? And that is where, if a
Yeah.
success criteria is defined and measured, what is the difference it makes there? First of all, can you like give us a brief of what this NPSS really is and what insight you derived from these numbers that you looked up?
Yeah, so the NPSS, it's a new thing that PMI has come up with. And they surveyed a whole bunch of project professionals and said, okay, how successful was your last project? And it was on a scale of 1 to 10. And if somebody said 1 to 6, then PMI deemed that to be unsuccessful. If they said 7 to 8, then they said it would mix results. And if they said 9 or 10, they said successful. Okay, reasonable. The NPSS, the Net Project Success Score, was then the percentage of people who said 9 or 10 minus the percentage of people who said 1 to 6. So the higher the number, the stronger the results. When you look at the number of people, percentage of people who say, we define success criteria up front, it was pretty decent. It was 84%. So 5 out of 6, give or take, say, yep, we define it up front. But there's still quite a lot that don't define it up front when you think how many projects get done. The NPSS was almost twice as good. It was 40 versus 21. So almost twice as good if you define the success criteria up front than if you don't. They also looked at whether or not, in addition to saying this is what makes us successful, organizations were also saying, and this is how we're going to measure that success. So it's not enough to say we want $1 million of net new revenue, but well, what does that actually mean? $1 million in what time frame? What does net
Mm,
new mean? New customers or just new sales to existing customers or what? So when you start defining how you're going to measure that, and 81% of people did that. So 4 out of 5. So again, good, but lots of room for improvement. The numbers were even more stark. I can't remember exactly what the number was for the people who said that they did define it up front, but it was close to that 40% from before. But the NPSS, the Net Project Success Score, for those who did not define the measurement criteria up front, was 6.
mm,
Just 6% more people said they were successful versus unsuccessful if they didn't define the measurement criteria up front. And
mm,
that is A, terrifying, but B, an area where a lot of organizations struggle. They know how to
mm,
define measurement for revenue or cost savings, but how do you define revenue for, or sorry, define measurement criteria for successful contributions to strategy or
mm.
regulatory compliance? It's not always as simple and straightforward. And
Right.
that's something that I think is an area organizations really have to focus on.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a good segue to get into the measurement piece of all of this, right? So the article
Mhm.
highlights that uh, around 1 in 5 projects they lack well-defined measurement practices. Now, speaking from just from your experience, right? What is the issue here? Are there any common challenges that sort of prevent organizations from setting up key measurements or key metrics?
I think there's two factors. One is
Mm,
legitimate, the other is an excuse. The
mm,
legitimate factor is that it can be hard to measure success.
mm,
It's easy if you're going to say it's a brand new product in a brand new market segment. Well, any sale you make is a measure of success. But what's the success criteria if that's already a mature product and you're just adding a few more features?
mm,
If your revenue doesn't increase, does that mean it failed? Or would your
mm,
revenue have decreased if you didn't put those features in? If your revenue does increase, is it just because you did those improvements, or would some of that increase have happened anyway? It is
okay.
legitimately difficult sometimes.
Mm, mm,
The other reason, the less viable reason, is people don't want to make themselves accountable.
mm,
You know, if you're doing a business case and you say, give me $1 million and I'll build this brand new thing and it'll be really cool and we'll get $10 million worth of revenue. What
mm,
you're really trying to say is, it's a really good project and I want to do it, please approve it.
mm,
If you can get away without having to say, and you can hold me accountable for that $10 million of revenue by measuring
mm,
this factor, and this factor, then you're going to do it. You're going to get away with it if you can, because
mm,
otherwise it affects your bonus. It may affect your job security. And
mm.
that's something that too many organizations still allow to happen. You don't let it happen on the cost side. If you're going to approve a project, you expect there to be a detailed costing of what it's going to take to deliver it. We
Right.
need to do the same thing on the value side, on the benefit side, even if it is difficult. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, my core audience, right, the community here is basically project managers.
Mhm.
So let's get to the project manager's role a bit here. Now, you've mentioned that project managers should be the gatekeepers of this success criteria.
Yep.
And how do you advise project managers to ensure that they have a solid understanding of this criteria, these, or maybe more than one criteria here, these criteria, before let's say a project even kicks off or has already kicked off? But how do project managers go about this?
So let's start by saying I don't expect project managers to be accountable for benefit attainment.
Mm,
That's the internal customer or the business owner or whatever it is. I do expect the project manager to understand what those benefits needs to be so that they can
mm,
make decisions appropriately during the delivery of the project to protect and optimize those benefits.
right.
So if a PM is told this is the project you're going to do, and yeah, you're going to have some people, but we don't really know how many. And you're going to have some time, but we haven't really figured out how long. and you're going to have to build some things, but we're not sure what.
Mm.
The project manager is going to go, well, I can't start that.
Right.
You've got to give me more specifics than that. They
Mm.
need to take the same approach on the value side. So if somebody says to a PM, you need to deliver this project and it's got to be good for the business, but we're not sure what that means. The PM should go,
Mm.
well, I'll happily get going when you figured out what the benefit is. Or if the
Right.
PM is told, you need to do this project and it's going to save us $2 million in operating costs next year,
Mm.
but there's no definition of how or what that means or what you're going to do to measure that $2 million. I expect
Mm.
the PM to say, it can't really get started on this yet because this key piece is missing. And it's
Right.
just as important as the budget and the schedule and all the rest, right? It
Mm.
is something that project managers do have to be the gatekeepers of, and they need to be prepared to push back. You said earlier, quite rightly, that PMs are expected to focus more on value and not just on the triple constraint. Well, if they're going to do that, they've got to call out when that
Mm.
value isn't clear.
Right.
Because
Right.
at the end of the day, if the project doesn't achieve the business goals,
Mm.
someone's going to come after the project manager and say you didn't do a good job.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's too late then to say, well, you didn't tell me what you wanted.
Right, right, right. Now, let's talk about during the course of the project, right? When you are supposed to be, working on the execution part of it day in,
Mhm.
day out, you're working on the project. Uh, do you think measuring performance or measuring value or, looking into the metrics that you are sort of after can slow things down? And is there a difference between how it's done in agile environment versus how it's done in traditional projects?
There's definitely a difference. I mean, Agile has, at least from a functionality standpoint, those regular checks built in, right? You have a
Mm.
new version that you hand off to your user representatives, your customer representatives at the end of every sprint to get feedback,
Mm.
and you incorporate that into the next round of doing things. When I first started managing projects, it was you get the signed off requirements and then you tell the customer to go away for 6 months and don't talk to me
Right.
again, right? I mean, so it's definitely different in that regard. Can it slow things down? Yeah, and it's not easy to measure during performance, during delivery, but
Mhm.
it is important still to do it. And would you rather take an extra day or a couple of days or whatever it is? It's not a significant amount to make sure
Mm.
you're doing the right thing, or would you rather just rush headlong and successfully deliver the wrong thing?
Mm.
We got to get a balance there. And organizations now are getting better at saying, we approved this project, but the world is changing, and we now need to change this project a little bit, or maybe not even proceed and do
Mm.
something different,
Right.
because otherwise we're not going to align with our strategic priorities. We're not going to give the market what it expects. We're getting better at that from a top-down standpoint. We need
Mm.
to also get better at that from an execution standpoint, whether that's a PM saying, I don't think you're going to get what you want from this, not anymore, not the way this is going. Or it's the PM saying, I know this is what you want to achieve, but we've been talking about it as a team. And we think if we make this change here and do a different approach to this part of the solution, we can actually give you more benefit.
Mm.
Is that something that would be worthwhile?
Perfect.
Usually it is, not always, but.
Mhm. Mhm. Perfect, perfect. Now, based on your experience, I just wanted to sort of get some, practical matrix or practical measurement that project managers should be doing or that are assigned to certain projects. What would those metrics look like on real life projects?
It depends a lot on what kind of project you're doing.
Hmm.
Ford launched a couple of years ago an all-electric pickup truck. It's an interesting story because it didn't end up being as successful as they thought it was going to be. But one of the things that they said that they were going to use as a success criteria were the number of people who had registered an interest in buying it
Hmm.
before, by a
Right.
certain date. And
Hmm.
they ended up with so many more people registering an interest than they expected. Even before the project started, they
Hmm.
decided to double the manufacturing capacity so they could put twice as many vehicles out as possible. Now, that's a kind of metric that you wouldn't use too often,
Hmm.
but you do need to think about it in that particular circumstance. I have no problem with a strategic project that is very speculative and requires a lot of innovation having a success criteria of the CEO says he likes it. That's fine,
Mm,
as
mm,
long as you define it up front. And I
mm,
expect a PM to go, hey, CEO, this is how far we've got. Are you still liking what you're seeing? Are we going in this direction? In
mm,
some cases, you can be more specific, you can be more objective. You can have regular reviews with the stakeholders to say, okay, this is what we're building. Do we think we're on track to deliver the cost saving or deliver the solution that people are going to want to buy? You can maybe take a prototype and put it in front of a user group and say, tell us what you think. It
mm.
does depend a lot, and you have to get creative sometimes. It is sometimes okay to say, so and so says they like it, but
Right.
you have to at least ask the questions, even if you don't have
Define it.
standard answers.
Mm. Love that. Love that. So, yeah, thank you so much. And for those of our audience who might know what actually happened with that Ford electric truck, let us know in the comments. It is an interesting story. But finally, at last, if you had to leave our audience with any critical takeaways in terms of measuring the project success, anything from your side, what would it be?
I would say recognize that as project managers, as project professionals these days, you are business leaders as well as project leaders.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you
Love that.
have a duty to
Mm.
say, we need a better job of defining success criteria. We need a better job of defining how we're going to measure success. Because if you don't, you're not doing the job that you're expected to do, which is to deliver a successful project. Successful projects are not on time, on scope, and on budget.
Mm.
Successful projects are on value.
Right.
That's what you
Love
have to
that.
deliver.
Love that. That's a quote that we are going to be walking away with today's episode. Successful projects are on value, not just on time and on budget. Thank you so much, Andy. It is always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today and sharing such insightful nuggets that I'm
Not at
sure
all.
our community is going to truly enjoy.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Sherry.